Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. We talk about horror movies on this show, and on this episode, we are going to talk about the Blackcoat's Daughter, aka February, because depending on where you are in the world, you'll get one of those two titles. And I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure where has what title, but Blackcoat's Daughter, February are the two titles. So we're going to talk about that. We'll start off spoiler free, as we always do. I mean, we'll give you a warning before spoilers later on. So, what is Blackcoat's Daughter? What is it about? It's about two girls at a fancy private religious school, a high school, and it's coming up on vacation time. And everyone's leaving, but their parents don't come and pick these two girls up. These two girls don't even know each other. They're not even the same year. One's a freshman, one's a senior, or something like that. They never specified actually what the older one was, but not the same year. And they're left kind of on their own with just a couple of caretakers who are there. And something dark is going on. There's something sinister. And then meanwhile, Emma Roberts' character, Joan, is sort of wandering the streets and trying to get to the same place, trying to get to the school at the same time. And we don't know why. And that's kind of it. That's, without spoilers, that is the setup of the movie. Creepy stuff happens, and there's sort of a foreboding tone. Tim?
Yes.
Actually, before I ask you the question, I'm just going to explain a little bit of the release wonkiness of this one.
Oh, okay.
Because this was one that I think sat in the shelf for a while. Like, it was a...
You say shat on the shelf?
I think I did it accidentally. I meant to say sat on the shelf.
No, I think that is like a good term for it, especially like, you know, for these movies. Well, I was going to say, like, for movies released in January and February because they're kind of shitty, you can just say.
Nah, this sat in the shelf for a couple of years. It was actually completed in 2015 and was at some festivals for a good while, and it wasn't actually released until this year. So it's actually a new movie in terms of the public release, but it's it's listed as 2015 on IMDb. That's where it's. So I like pointing that out. I think it's interesting, especially since this director went on to do something else in the meantime that already came out. He did a film on Netflix called The Girl in the House at the End of the Lane or something like that.
That title sounds familiar.
Oh, there you go. The Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. That's it. I am the pretty thing that lives in the house. That's the one.
This guy needs to work on his titles, man.
So maybe we could do that one later. But I think it's worth pointing that out because it's nice to know where they are. Because like some of the actresses in this, obviously Emma Roberts. I mean, she was in Scream 4 actually. I guess was the first thing I ever saw her in. But obviously, I know her mainly now from Scream Queens. It's really hard not to think of Chanel when I see Emma Roberts now.
She's actually becoming like quite a face in terms of horror, because she had that Scream 4, like you said, American Horror Story.
Was she in that?
Yeah, she was in the fourth or third season, whatever the really. I mean, I know you don't like the show at all, but the season with the witches, which was definitely the crappiest by far.
She was in a season of American Horror Story. Yeah. Yeah, so she's there. Lucy Boynton or Boynton, say her name, who plays Rose. She was in Sing Street, which I'm pretty sure was after this. But so she's in that. She was in. Speaking of FX shows, she was in one of those Feud seasons. You know that anthology shows, like the Feud. Yeah. She was in one of those, and she's going to be in the Murder on the Orient Express remake that's coming up later this year. So she's starting to make a bit of a name for herself and doing different things.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned FX shows because the dad that's in it, he played the dad on Wilfred, which because me and my girlfriend were just rewatching it recently, and
did you just say James Remar from Wilfred? Not the Warriors, not even Dexter or the other 100
I forgot
things
he was in Dexter, but that was the most recent thing I've seen him in.
Or even as Raiden in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. None of those. She went straight to Wilfred.
What was the thing that was most prescient on my mind? I had just seen him there.
He's been in tons of stuff. Like I say, Warriors, obviously, I think it's the earliest example. I'm just going to skim his IMDb since
Warriors is good. I haven't seen that in a long time.
It was in The Path on Hulu. I didn't really watch. I only seen the pilot of that, but he was in that. He's been in a bunch of stuff though. His IMDb list is absolutely insane. He's the sort of guy who guest stars on a lot of TV shows.
Okay.
He was a main character on Jericho. Yeah, I remember him seeing him on that. He does voices for a lot of animes. He's a character actor who pops up all over the place.
Okay.
It's really not uncommon to see him, but yeah. So yeah, that's
So good cast.
yeah, interesting cast of both old and new faces. And then I believe the other main actress was not mentioned. Kiernan Shipka, who plays Kat. She was on Mad Men. So I wasn't familiar with her, but you know, so some people will see her and go, "Oh, that's her."
Yeah.
So Tim,
Yes.
that was a long way to get to that question. But Tim, did you enjoy The Blackcoat's Daughter, aka February?
No, I did not. It's not necessarily a bad made movie. It's there were some good parts to it, but overall, I just wasn't that interested in it. It's kind of slow to me. Not super interesting.
I'm just laughing because you said, because I thought that was a weird way to phrase it. That was a bad made movie. I was like, not badly, Tim. And then I thought, oh, maybe I can correct him and say that was a bad made sentence.
It did feel weird coming out of my mouth, but I was like, I don't know.
Felt weird going into my ears.
I don't want to call it a film, and I would be like, oh, it's this film. I don't know. So
it would still be badly if it was film. The different word for movie doesn't exactly change the other grammar in the sentence.
The movie part was what seemed weird to me, but regardless, I didn't really enjoy it that much.
Well, this is interesting because I actually kind of liked it.
Yeah, I knew you would.
What's that supposed to mean?
Because it's slow and boring, but you're gonna talk about all the atmosphere and blah blah blah.
Tim, we talk about horror movies. Atmosphere is a pretty big part of horror movies.
Yeah, so is stuff happening.
Stuff happened? What is this preposterous? I don't think it's a knockout of the park. I don't think it's amazing by any means. I can certainly. This was the director's first movie. What's his name here? Oz Perkins.
Oz. Yeah.
Or Osgood Perkins, as he was credited in the actual movie. This is his first movie, and you can kind of tell almost, not because it's badly done, but just because that's what I did there. Badly done, not bad done. I don't even mean that. I just noticed that. But the reason why I say that is because I think one of the sort of tell signs, other than maybe it being bad, which I don't think this is. But if a debut movie's still good, I think one of the tell signs is maybe the director's first movie, is that you can see a lot of inspirations. Like in this, I was feeling a lot of Kubrick. I was feeling, and I'm not saying it's as good as Kubrick. I'm just saying I can see a lot of emulation of you know what a Kubrick in The Shining perhaps would be doing. A little bit of David Lynch in the dream sequences. A little bit of this and that. Like I could see all these different like obvious inspirations that had fed into this movie, and it kind of felt like, oh, he had all this in his system and he wanted to get it all out there in this one. So I think, but honestly, I had a pretty good time, mainly because I did think it was well directed. I thought it was slow, absolutely, but it was a very deliberate slow.
Yeah, like when I say I don't like it, it's not one of the movies that we watch that it's like, oh, I didn't like this because it was bad. I thought that, you know, this was a poor choice, or that the acting sucked, or blah, blah, blah. Everything that's in it, I thought was competently done. It's just one of those things where at the end of the day, it didn't really speak to me. And, you know, a little bit more, like, it'd be easier to go in depth in, like, spoilers and stuff. But
well, unfortunately, Tim, we're still going to talk about it for the next 25, 30 minutes, so buckle in.
No, I know. I'm just saying, I don't want to sound like I'm saying that, oh, this movie sucks and, you know, the guy didn't know what he was doing. No, I thought it was good. It was well made. Yeah, it's just a little bit of, you know, when it comes to personal preferences and, you know, stuff that gets you going, there wasn't as much of that in it, this for me.
Yeah, so if you have good taste, you'll be fine.
That's subjective, but...
I love how Tim can go from, oh no, it's too slow and snooty for me, to that's subjective. Just, you know, posh, nice snooty, you know, sip of the drink. No, I dug it. I thought, along with the slow pacing, it used a lot of empty framing, which I thought was really effective here, because a lot of this movie is about how isolated the characters feel, especially Kat. Kat feels especially lonely every time we see her, and I think it's very important that even early on, when she's having like a conversation with someone else, and like she's sitting across a table, every time it cuts to her, she's very small in the frame. There's a lot of empty space around her, and it really makes her feel like she's alone. And like I thought it was a really nice, a lot of subtle touches in the direction that really helped build what the story. Because I feel like this is a movie where there's not actually that much plot. There's a bit of plot, but it's not a super in-depth plot. It's how it's told and sort of the feeling as it's going through the plot. I guess, if that makes sense, where you're feeling the atmosphere and the emotion in a scene, as opposed to having a scene that has lots and lots of points of stuff happening. Like,
right, there's not a ton of, jump scares or, things popping out, or it's not that kind of movie.
Oh no, it's a slow brood of a psychological tense builder thingy majig.
And I actually wasn't really I had heard this title a little bit before, but I really didn't know anything about it going in, and I did actually end up watching the trailer like a day or two before I watched it.
Oh, why would you do that, Tim?
Because I didn't know anything about it and I was interested.
Nor did I.
You don't watch trailers?
Not if I know I'm about to watch it. I only watch trailers for movies that are not out for months, and I'm like anticipating them, or if I happen to be at the theater and it comes on. But in this example though, like if I know I'm watching it in 2 days, nah, I wouldn't. No.
Well, I was interested in wanting to see, what kind of movie it was going to be.
Did it spoil things for you?
No, but there was, they're playing like quotes from critics. And
the most erotic thriller in years.
Well, no, that's what it said. Like this movie is erotically charged.
Really?
I was like,
oh shit! I was just joking because that was like the obvious.
No, that's like
not what it is.
Legit.
Yeah.
I might get the phrasing a little bit wrong, but it's definitely erotic something. And so I actually kind of expected this movie to be a lot sexier than it was. Like,
all right, so Tim's disappointed. He only had an erection 3 times. So that's what he's saying.
I'm not disappointed. I just thought it was weird. Like, who was watching it and thought like, "Oh, this is so erotic."
Well, I mean, again, that's not really a fault of the movie. That's a fault of the marketing team for putting that ridiculous quote in the trailer.
Yeah, I'm not blaming the movie for that. I just thought that was weird.
I legitimately said that as a joke. I thought of the most absurd, like, stupid quote, and that's quite funny actually. Now I knew nothing. Like, honestly, for the first like 30 minutes, I had no idea where this was going. Like, I had no idea what the plot was. I had no idea. Was this going to be crazy people killing each other? Was this going to be like a demon or a ghost, or was it supernatural? Was it not supernatural? I had no idea. Like, is it even any of that? Is it something like a teacher who's psycho and killing kids, or like, I didn't know. I really had no idea. It wasn't until maybe about halfway through the movie when it all kind of started to click into place, and that's kind of what I like about it, because it plays with telling stuff not exactly in order. And I think there's a moment about halfway through the movie where they reveal a key thing, which honestly I had kind of guessed. Like, I was sort of it felt like the movie after a little while that, okay, this movie's withholding things so it can wow me later. So I started to try and guess things as I was just in my head. I was just sort of thinking, okay, I bet this is this and that is that and she is she and all these different kind of ideas. And it just, but it worked for me though. When it eventually started revealing stuff, I was like, all right, okay, this is kind of clicking into place. The actual backstory as to why things are happening is very, very simple and to an extent kind of vague, which I was kind of okay with. To a point. If I have a complaint with it, it's maybe that it could have been just slightly more defined, or maybe not even defined, but just teased a little bit more in the first half of the movie, I think would be my one criticism. But nah, I dug the slow pacing, I dug the build. I actually really liked the ending. I thought the ending was a really interesting touch. More on that when we actually talk about spoilers, but that's kind of feel. And I like the actors. Like, I thought all the girls did a good job. Kat was the suitable kind of weirdo loner girl who was always quiet. Rose was kind of the more kind of typical kind of badass, but not really. Like, I kind of liked how she was kind of more of a rebel, but in a really sort of realistic way. Like, she wasn't over the top. She was doing kind of teenage girl things. And then obviously Emma Roberts was pretty good, and to her credit, I was not constantly expecting her to break into Chanel, comedy dialogue. So fair play to that.
Yeah, I think at one point I kind of, was watching her and going like, oh, she actually does have pretty good range, because you feel like after something like Scream Queens, it'd be real easy to get typecast as that type of character, but she does a very, much more subdued, kind of low-key performance here, which worked pretty well.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of Chanel, because Chanel's such a fast talker, and then Joan's like, you'll maybe get a line of dialogue every couple of scenes. But very, very different. So that's pretty cool. And I like the setting. I liked that it was set in winter, as the alternate title February would imply. There's snow everywhere, and it just gives it, again, maybe that's more of a Shining homage, where he's like, oh, I'm a big fan of that movie. I want it to have that kind of feel, where they're isolated out in this. It's not a mansion, of course, or a hotel. It's it's a school. It has dorms, so it's kind of similar, and it's got a lot of rooms for people to stay in. But similar kind of ideas. So no, I think we'll maybe go into spoilers then. I feel we've danced around things as much as we possibly can. So full spoilers from this point on for the Blackcoat's daughter, aka February. So, let's get to the meat then. Let's get to the meat.
Okay.
So, at what point in this movie did you start to question if there was two timelines?
I think at some point when the parents, I think specifically it's the father first that mentions his daughter was killed.
Okay.
And then, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I think he says it a little later. His daughter's name is Rose. Because then at that point, you're like, oh, all right, that's when it's pretty clear.
Oh, yeah, because he says her name as he hands over the photo, kind of idea. So, I think, because as soon as because there's a great moment where, so Joan's out at this bus station. She's escaped from like a mental asylum. I mean, it doesn't outright tell you that at first, but you see the medical band on her wrist, and there's a couple of quick flashes that suggest she kind of escaped somewhere. And what's his name, Bill, the father, kind of runs past her and notices she's kind of underdressed for the weather, and is like, oh, are you alone? Are you scared? Are you okay? Like, can we help you? Me and my wife are traveling to here. You're trying to get to there. Oh, we're kind of going past there. We can take you, kind of idea. And it was just real quick, like at first, before you kind of start to get the inkling that maybe there's something more up with her, at first it kind of felt like Bill was going to be some type of antagonist, in here, like, there was like a first moment where I'm like, is he like some creepy rapist, pervert, serial killer, like, and I'm like, no, it seems kind of genuine. And obviously he says, because he says like, oh, my wife's over in the car. It's like, is she though? Are you just luring her over to the car? Like, I felt like that might be, but it was when he said, a little
later in the motel or hotel scenes, he was pretty tense.
It was even just seeing this scene, as soon as he said, oh, I'm going to the school or whatever, like
Brad, it's beginning with a B, Brad or
Bradford or something like that.
Bradford, yeah.
As soon as he says he's going there, I'm like, oh shit, he's one of the parents. Now I didn't know whose parent he was, because we have the two main girls, of course. We have both Kat and Rose, who both haven't got their parents there. But I'm like, okay, that's one of the parents, and I'm like, okay, right, so they're on their way there. And I figured it was probably Rose, because Rose's parents still feel like they're on the way, because she still said, oh, I intentionally lied about the date so that I could do what I need to do. Because obviously part of the plot is that she thinks she's pregnant, she has to tell her boyfriend, and that's kind of why she's sort of delayed her parents, so she can stay back and go and see him and talk to him about it. But it was right at this point of the movie where, so, okay, right, this couple are one of the sets of parents for these girls, probably Rose, and honestly, it was in the very same scene that I said to myself, I think this is a misdirect. I don't think this is the same time. I don't think they're on the way to pick her up. Because I think that's what you're supposed to think. I think you're supposed to think they're on the way right now to go pick her up. And honestly, as well, as soon as I seen, it's funny because I was expecting Emma Roberts to show up, because that was the face I was expecting to see, because she's on the poster, she's the big name on the front of the cover and all that. As soon as
you looked at the poster before you watched the movie? Why would you do that?
when you're on the streaming service, you see the poster when you go to click play. Suck it, Tim. Suck it.
No, thank you.
Respectfully, the internet. So
I can't speak for the whole internet.
yes, I can. I am their overlord. So yeah, I was expecting to see Emma Roberts in the movie, and we didn't start with her. We started with Kat, and as soon as I saw Kat, I went, she looks like a young Emma Roberts. Is this a flashback? So sure enough, later on in the movie, as soon as he shows the photo of Rose to Emma Roberts, to Joan, and I seen her reaction, where she sort of looked at her, and it was like she knew her. I'm like, okay, shit. She's the older Kat. Joan is Kat, and and at this point, I wasn't convinced necessarily that she was the one who did bad things, even though I think we'd already had the scene where so Rose snuck out. She told Kat, "I'm not staying here. I need to go out," and she was kind of bitchy about it. Not amazingly so, but she was like, "Yeah, I'm not staying to babysit you. Like, screw off, kid. Like, I'm ready to do something." And she comes back and she finds her being all kind of creepy down in the boiler room, and she takes her back up to bed. And in bed, like, Kat has that really creepy line where she says, "You already had your chance." And it's like, whoa, like, because she tries to be nice to her. Rose tries to be nice to her at this point because she sees she's kind of messed up, and she's like, "You had your chance." It's like, oh dear. But other than that, I wasn't necessarily seeing the movie go down the path of, oh, Kat's going to be a psychopath and kill people.
See, you know what's kind of funny is it still didn't really click for me right then that Joan was an older Kat, because I thought that like she might be someone else that actually I think I put this to get like started thinking this maybe a little later in the movie, but at one point I started thinking that she might be someone else that was in a mental hospital or something that got possessed by what might have been possessing Kat or something like that. Like, it didn't 100% click for me like until the end of the movie. Actually,
one of the thoughts I had when Emma Roberts first popped up and she was trying to get to the school, I thought, because she looks at the map and she's like, "Oh, I need to get to there," is because I'd already had that thought that Kat looked like a younger version of her. I thought maybe she was Kat's older sister, and if something bad did happen to the parents, which Kat thought it had, and she had that weird dream at the start that kind of implied that something bad was going to happen to them, I thought, oh, maybe her sister's trying to come and get her to like protect her because something's coming for her or something like that. Like that, but it was a brief thought. It was obviously once the movie started going where it was going, like I just kind of left that behind. But those were the kind of thoughts that were running through my head. So what the movie ultimately is then, to sort of split it into the two timelines. 9 years ago in the past, Kat, and we see more of this later on. We get this sort of montage of events we've already seen, but we see it from Kat's perspective, where we see what she's seeing. And there's this demonic figure that we only ever see in silhouette. He's got kind of horns and he's kind of furry, kind of cool looking actually, just for a silhouette. It had a good presence to him.
Yeah.
But she keeps seeing this being, and it's implied that this being is possessing her, and did possess her at least to begin with. On that night that Rose left, it may have been starting to before then, but that's certainly when it came into power. Because it's like the very next day when she starts to, like, she drops a C-bomb on one of the caretakers. One of the nuns, because they're all very religious and they're saying grace and stuff, and then she ends up vomiting at the table, which again very Exorcist-esque in terms of its inspiration. You're witnessing scenes like that you kind of recognize. But that happens, and then obviously as the movie goes on, eventually we have the principal or whoever, Mr. Gordon, arrives with a police officer, and we have that really great, it's a really well done shot actually, because they come up to the front door of the little building that they should be in, the little caretaker's house, and the door's locked. So they come round from the front and they start to walk round to the back door. But the camera stays inside the house and it just pans from the front door and it slowly goes through the house, just panning across, and then eventually once it reaches the kitchen you see some blood on the door frame. And I thought that was really effective because up until this point we hadn't actually seen anything violent.
Yeah.
And it was just like the camera came across and there's blood. It was like, oh shit, something, like someone has went nuts. Like Kat's actually went psycho here. And they came in and they see what happened and stuff. And basically, Kat, while possessed, killed them and then kills Rose. And honestly, Rosie's death scene I think was very impressive. I was actually really surprised with how. And this might sound like a sick thing to say, but it felt so realistic. It was such a simple jump out and stab at her repeatedly in the stomach. It felt very visceral.
Yeah, it's one of those things where maybe we're conditioned to a little bit more of like over the top violence where, in other horror movies you might see, someone get like a spear through their whole head or like their limbs being ripped off or something. But yeah, sometimes it really takes you back when it's just like, oh no, these are just two people and, it's not like mountains of blood gushing everywhere and someone like falling over or being thrown in the air. It's like, oh yeah, this is probably what this would look like.
Yeah, it's very simple because Rose gets up in the morning, the two caretakers are already dead, and she hears a noise in the bathroom. It kind of creeps her out, and she's in like her bathrobe because it's the morning. She's just getting up to get a shower and whatever, and she's just creeping around because she's starting to get worried that something bad's happening. And she sees like some blood in the stairway with like a bag that has stuff in it. We know it's decapitated heads, but from later, but that's what it is. And it's just as she tries to run back that Cat just jumps out and just stabs her repeatedly in the stomach. And I think what makes it feel even more creepy afterwards is that when she goes to start to decapitate her, because that's what she's doing, she's cutting off their heads afterwards. Is she lifts up her head by just lifting up her hair. She just grabs a bunch of hair and she lifts her head up. And she's lifeless, and it feels so cold and real, and it gives it this visceral nature where it doesn't feel like I'm watching some cheesy movie or anything like that. It feels like there's weight to it, and I respected that. I respected that it went all movie without any violence. It was just slow brooding build. There's a sense that something bad's going to happen in the air, but there's not actual full-on hints necessarily or full-on foreshadowing, and then this is just like this sudden burst of violence. It's a very it's almost like the horror version of a Tarantino kind of idea where you withhold and at the end you just blow your load, like you just have it be really proper, fast and brutal. It's really impressive. I like the kill scene. I really did like the kill scene.
Yeah, and she looks pretty creepy. Yeah, while she's doing it, like you said, she kind of just has this almost kind of like vacant-ish kind of look where it's, like it really does kind of feel like someone being possessed.
So she has 3 decapitated heads, and she takes them out of the boiler room, which is where the cop who came with the principal comes down and catches her, and he catches her kind of sit on her knees, sort of praying to whoever she's praying to, with these 3 heads laid out on the floor, and then when the cop tells her to get up, and I like as well this scene. The cop's voice was like distorted. It was kind of like we were hearing him how she was hearing him, which was like not completely or clearly. Like it was still like this big muffled sound effect, and it really sort of gave you that sense of that she's not really part of this world right now. She's not hearing life the way it actually sounds. And she just basically puts her hands up and says "Hail Satan" a bunch of times before the cop shoots her. And again, this is one of the little hints that ties them together with the previous timeline or the later timeline. Is Emma Roberts has a scar in her shoulder, in the back of her shoulder, so a bullet hole. So it clearly links them up in terms of who's who. And then young Cat is then taken to a hospital after all this goes down, and the priest that she sees at the start of the movie comes in. He's the priest who works at the school, and she was actually disappointed that he couldn't stay around because she had a musical performance at the start for leaving day when everyone was leaving with their parents to go home for vacation. She had a little recital to do with the piano, and she was upset that he couldn't stay. And this was sort of the first scene where we really see that she's kind of weird and she's not responding in correct ways. And obviously a big thing for me here with this scene is that this is really, it's really showing how lonely she is. She doesn't seem like she has any friends, for a start. She's already convinced that her parents aren't coming, and they don't. She's truly kind of alone, and this priest is maybe the closest thing she has to family at this point. And she's upset that he has to leave, that he has to go, to the point where she tries to talk him out. He's like, oh, I need to go to whatever town for the vacation, I need to leave today. And she's like, oh, how long is that going to take? That'll only take a few hours. Like she's like almost breaking down his story. He's like, oh, you could stay for a few more hours and see it. You could. Yeah. But this is kind of the first sign that she feels lonely in life. So cut to the end here, or the end of this timeline where she's in the hospital bed and the priest like whips out his Bible and he's got his holy water and he's doing his exorcism. He's like, he almost says the power of Christ compels you. He doesn't quite say that. He says Christ compels you or something like that. It says something close to it. And he's doing the whole thing, and she looks over and she sees the demon staring at her. This demonic figure. And she quietly and softly says to it, "Please don't leave me." And I thought that was really effective. That was a really interesting, because essentially what this movie is, from Kat's perspective, is that she's a girl who got possessed by this demon, and she was happy she got possessed because it was maybe the first time she didn't feel alone, that she didn't feel empty, like she actually had someone with her, even if it was a demon.
Did you think the demon was real, or like it's all in her head?
I think it's real, mainly because, well, you could argue, I suppose. Well, let's talk about the other timeline.
Okay.
Can I talk about what she's doing in present day? So in present day, she's with this couple, with Bill and his wife, who are Rosie's parents, and they're taking her in the car, and they're driving to the school as well, because they want to like put flowers down in her, the site of her death. They do a little memorial thing every year, and we have some scenes with him talking about God himself and how he's religious and how he sees God in people, and it's doing acts of kindness that for him is what God is, rather than just looking for it in a book and things like that. And he has all this stuff with her. And it sets up some of these religious themes, and it's kind of how because throughout the whole movie in the previous timeline, she is constantly sort of fighting against it. Like, she's not saying grace. She's using foul language with a nun. She's doing all this various stuff. She's constantly fighting against it, killing people, obviously. Demonic activity, very, very non-religious, very satanic, if you will. So it really sets up that he's in this other side of this coin, and so eventually, after he tells her about his daughter and that she died, and later on we hear the mother, like, because the mother's very confrontational. She constantly sort of confronts him for telling anyone this stuff, and she's like,
she seems like maybe a little more like on the pessimistic side. Like he seems a little more like optimistic, like, hey, I want to celebrate my daughter and talk about her and remember her, and she seems like she kind of wants to almost shut it out and not really deal with it as much, like it's too painful. Very
much so. And she also, because she again links the stories together, because she mentions that she was beheaded, because she says something like, "Oh, did they tell you that they had to do blood tests to match the head to the body?" And she sounds very, very bitter, and not that I'm blaming her, like her daughter getting decapitated, but so again, another really good death scene. Like, Joan / Kat just leaps forward and slits Bill's throat, and this was the thing. Even once I'd realized that she was Kat, I thought, oh, maybe she's different now. Like, she has grown up. Maybe she's going back to the school. She wants to go back to the school to confront her demons, like, kind of thing. Like, she's gotten better. But no, this was like, no, she is still evil. She still what? And this is kind of the fascinating thing of the movie to me, because she kills the two of them. She slits his throat, and then again with a sort of quick stabbing on the wife, she decapitates them, puts their heads in a suitcase, goes to the school, goes down to the boiler room, puts the decapitated heads out, and begins to kind of worship or pray or whatever. And in the final shot of the movie, she's back out in the lonely road in the snow, and it's just this shot of her crying and screaming because she's so abundantly upset. And it starts off, you can hear the scream, and then it fades out and the music just plays over it, and it's like a silent scream, and that's the end of the movie. And I thought this was very powerful, because the way I read this, right, I've seen this read a couple of different ways actually, but the way I read this and the way it felt to me is that she was doing this, she killed Rosie's parents because she wanted to get the demon back. And the reason why she's crying out in pain at the end is because it didn't come back, is that she is truly alone because the demon isn't coming, despite the fact that she's made this offering, despite the fact that she's finished what maybe she started back then. Maybe, it was like, oh, we want the whole family to be killed because they're whatever, I don't know. But like, she's made this offering, and that she's well and truly alone. Even the demon has abandoned her. Her mother's abandoned her, the priest abandoned her, everyone's abandoned her. Rose, on that night when she was supposed to be looking after her, abandoned her. Everyone, including the demon now, as a banner, and that's why she's crying in pain, because she's well and truly alone. That's how I read that ending, and I liked that. I thought that was a really good ending.
Yeah, that's the way I kind of figured too. She was either doing something to try to get the demon back, or maybe, thought by going back to the school, she could summon it again or something, or I don't know, whatever. But yeah, in the end, basically, it's not there anymore. Yeah, which
that's why it's interesting when you said, "Is it real?" I'd never really considered that it isn't real, and honestly, it kind of works if it isn't. Like if it is all in her head, and it's just like it just doesn't come back because it's not real. Well, that's also maybe, kind of amazing.
Yeah, especially if she was at like a mental hospital, maybe if she got therapy or started taking medication, that, maybe
and it's been 9 years as well. Like, that's a lot of time to grow and potentially heal. Not completely. She's still decapitating people. She's not exactly fit for the world. But well, it's funny because I read a theory that she did complete something with the demon and it actually finished, but because she completed what she'd started, the demon left her, and part of why she was crying at the end was because for the first time she actually felt the true guilt of what she'd done. I don't read it that way. I disagree with that interpretation. To me, what makes this story interesting is that this is someone who wanted to be possessed again. This is someone who liked it. This is someone who wanted to have the demon back. That honestly for me is what gave this movie depth. Like I was enjoying it. Like I thought it was moody and broody and I thought it was well slow paced, and I was really sort of into the scenes for the most part. But then what really sort of put it up a notch for me was this revelation that she liked being possessed. She wants to be possessed. Like she feels naked without it and she wants it back. That to me was fascinating. I hadn't seen a possession movie do that before, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. I think I liked these like future segments with Joan. I don't know. I found them to be a little more interesting, maybe just because you really didn't know what was going on or how they were connected. As the other segments, there's some good stuff there too, but I don't know. I feel like those maybe seemed a little more drawn out, and after a while, it just got to be like, kind of like, all right, some creepy stuff is happening, but not really much is happening. I don't know. I found myself that a little bit more invested in the Jones storyline.
That's fair. I felt I was invested in both. I was pretty into it. I mean, I don't want to sing its praises too much and sound like I'm glowing over it, because I'm not. Like, I do think it does show its sort of rookie sort of roots, if you will, kind of, but by maybe relying on the inspirations a little bit too much. And I do think the whole idea that she did love being possessed by a demon, and even the idea that there was an actual demon, could have been clearer earlier on. I felt like once it actually started showing you her seeing something in the room, I don't know if they'd maybe done enough of sort of building up the fact that she was being possessed. It felt like it was just one or two random things. And maybe that's just me, but it felt like, honestly, you're saying it's slow and not a lot happened. I feel like it could have used a few more scenes in the first half, building some of this stuff up, which might have slowed it down a bit more. But
I would have appreciated more scenes, but maybe just a little more exciting scenes. I don't know. I feel like sometimes like stuff would just be really like drawn on. It does this thing that I've been noticing lately that kind of annoys me, where I hate when characters like don't answer questions. Like I feel like there were a lot of scenes where they'd ask her something and she just kind of like looked down, she wouldn't like really say anything, and the character would be like, all right, well, whenever you're ready to talk or whatever, like blah blah blah. Like I don't know, that to me that just kind of irritates me.
I feel like it fits the character in this case, so I'm not going to hold that against it.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, but it still doesn't really do much to the fact that it kind of irks me a little bit.
I think it's a little rough around the edges, but I was really into this. I think this was a promising first movie from someone. Honestly, I was definitely more into it than you was, because I liked it. I would say I liked it. Thought it was good. Pretty good, even.
I'd say it's well made, but in the end, just not my particular type of movie, I guess. It didn't happen often, but there was like maybe one or two scenes. Like I think she's on the bed and she kind of like stands up straight like really fast. I don't know if like you remember that. It's like and then there's kind of like this loud music sting. I don't know. It felt like kind of weird and out of place. It happened like once or twice.
Yeah. Well, I think we're ready to go to ratings then.
Well, it probably sounds like we're gonna give it like a really low score because I'm not super hot on it. But again, you know, everything was done well, so I feel like I can't really, you know, deduct too much. And I did enjoy the parts where there was like, you know, the deaths and seeing the demons, and again the acting and stuff was all well. So I'm still gonna give it a 6, which isn't like a horrible score. But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not in a. I'd be interested to see, you know, the other stuff, you know, this person does, but I'm probably not in a rush to rewatch this anytime soon. And it wasn't very erotic, unfortunately.
It was not. So no, I liked it a lot more than you. Obviously, I thought I was never bored. I never thought it did drag on too long. I appreciated the pacing. I liked the kind of the feeling of emptiness that the scenes were conveying, both in the framing and the way it did have like so little dialogue at times, where there was a lot of absence between sentences. To me, it all added to this feeling of loneliness and why this girl felt this way that she did, and why she did love having a demon possessor. Like, it all kind of built to what was driving her. So for me, that all kind of worked. Like I say, I thought the death scenes were really well handled. I thought the direction was typically really good, actually. If maybe a little, like, hey, I've got a fancy thing I want to do, and here's my fancy thing. Like, maybe it felt a little bit like that at times, but it typically was working well, so he knew what he was doing. So for me, and I like the cast for the most part. I thought all the main girls did a really good job. So for me, I'm tempted to go as high as an 8.
Oh, wow.
7.5, certainly. Definitely a 7.5, but I'm tempted to stretch it to an 8. Interestingly, I'm looking at the IMDb score. It's only got a 5.7, which is a little bit on the lower side, but hey-ho. I kind of dug it. But again, given this slow burn type of movie, I feel like this is, obviously you like this movie, so this isn't a comparison to you specifically, but you know how when The Witch came out, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's so slow, nothing happens, and I kind of feel like there's those same people are the kind of reason why a movie like this gets a lot of low ratings on, you know, stuff like IMDb.
Well, I mean, I definitely disagree with that, seeing as how The Witch is an amazing movie, and this, not so much, but...
Well, no, of course, but like I said, like, I'm not necessarily saying the two are the one and the same, and I know you like The Witch and you weren't saw it in this one, but The Witch also had a lot of detractors when it came out. Like, there's a lot of people who said that about The Witch. There's a lot of people who would rate the Witch really low and say it's overrated because they think it's boring.
Yeah. In that case, they're wrong. In this case, they're right.
Okay.
No, that is too harsh for the movie. Again, I wouldn't come down that hard on it.
All right. Well, I guess we're wrapping up then. So that has been the Blackcoat's Daughter, aka February. Phil's spoilers. Why am I saying that again? I feel like I'm into an intro. But just inside baseball here, we had some tech issues there, and it's been like a good 10 minutes or so since we did the last little chunk of this. So it's entirely possible I've just reverted back to intro territory.
It's a lot like the movie. It's taking place in the future and the past. I don't know.
So it's funny you say that, because me and Connor will be doing Memento on 121 in Flux this week, and I'm tempted to do the outro at the start and do the intro at the end.
You should, that'd be funny.
Because the movie goes backwards, of course. But no, that's Blackcoat Stars. So if you've seen the movie, let us know what you thought of it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Helps us out a lot. Get us on Twitter at mild_fudge for channel updates. And head over to patreon.com/mildfuzztv if you want to support the channel and everything we do here. Keep the reviews flowing. Have us doing more and more and more until I can just book out Tim for like 7 days a week, and he can do like one every day.
See, you always like make fun and complain like it's such a chore to do these, but then you always want me back for more. So I don't think you're fooling anyone, Mister.
Okay. Okay.
Who's really lonely here?
So the side of my mouth's really annoying me because I
You're
trimmed...
not the only one.
Shut up. I trimmed like a little bit of
Your
like
teeth?
no, the beard, like the outside of my mouth, your tit, like here. But it's
Okay.
like I went a little bit too short when I trimmed it here, and it's like kind of every time it touches a bit of my skin in the end of my mouth, it's rough, it's coarse. Mild chafing is kind of what I'd call it.
I hate when like the mustache hair. Whoa.
Damn cat.
Yeah, I was gonna say I hate when the mustache hairs just get a little too long and they're just always kind of popping in the mouth.
Yeah, that's why obviously you trim them every once in a while. But yeah, I like the idea that some people got to, we start saying like and subscribe, go to the Patreon. Some people just turn it off right then. They missed this gold. They missed this post-plugging section. So shame on them for not sticking around for the post-plugging sequence, if you will.
You never know when that could be our tagline. You never know when a tangent is gonna happen.
Or where it's going to go. So it's guys, thank you very much for watching once again. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time.